For some people, they're quite happy working 70 hours a week, but they've got to the point where they can't grow their business any further because they can't do any more than 70 hours. You know, it's a bit of a mess because it's just evolved over time to meet their needs, and just things have been bolted on as and when.
I want more work balance to spend time with my kids, and it's that having that person to go, it's okay to let go of control of this so you can do this.
Yes. I think part of it, they all will know cutting edge of their specialism. So we therefore are able to tap into so much. We do what we have to do to get us to a certain point, but then to get further, we have to do something different. And we have to get someone to help us. When I identify the need for someone to come in and do a specific role in someone's business, it's always someone within my trusted network. I wouldn't go, right, okay, go and find someone to do your social media and come back in 6 months. I'd guide them through that process.
And that is a perfect segue into introducing yourself. So would you like to introduce yourself, and could you share any of your background and why you became a virtual business manager and how your experiences has helped you?
So I'm Sian. I am a virtual business manager, and a very virtual business manager, because I do spend part of my time in the UK and part of my time in sunnier, warmer climates in Gran Canaria. So that's a big clue as to why I became a virtual business manager. I was traveling between 2 countries and needed to find a role, a job that I could do from 2 places. And I suppose if I'm looking at why I ended up doing virtual business management, I was searching, trying to see what potentially I could do, and I came across back in about 2016, 2017, the idea of digital nomads. Now, digital nomads, it was quite a new thing back then, but the idea was it was people that were traveling the world with their laptop, exploring the world, doing some work at the same time, and going from country to country, just enjoying life and funding that travel through working via a laptop. And whilst I didn't want to do that, I've got roots in South Wales. My son lives in South Wales. My mum lives in Essex, so I've got roots from that point of view. But my boyfriend was in Gran Canaria, and so I needed to be able to travel. So I didn't need the absolute nomadic lifestyle, but I needed to do a similar type of job. So I enrolled on a course which was called, at the time it was called the Digital Nomad Kit. It's now called the Virtual Assistant Excellence Academy, Virtual Excellence Academy. But it's all about training people to use their skills to work remotely. And that's the emphasis, that you've got skills that you can use and you can do it remotely. So I was looking at what skills I had from, at that point, I'd been working for around 20 years. So I'd started out, as a teenager, I'd been a voluntary swimming instructor, and then I'd done a little bit of lifeguarding. And when I went to university, I did a degree in electronic engineering, and I was sponsored by a manufacturing company. And so I spent my summers working in manufacturing companies, doing various projects, such as troubleshooting on the shop floor. One of my favorite summers was spent working in Newport, South Wales for a company that made the little water heaters that sit over your sink when you haven't got a hot water tank. And they had a production problem with the welding on that, and I had to work out what the problem was and solve the problem. And so it was just really fascinating because I had to build trust. I was like a woman in their early 20s going onto a shop floor. You know, the guy that was working the machine was obviously quite naturally fearful of me because he thought I was going to like take his job away from him. So I had to build trust because I had to get him to show me how he did his job so that I could work out what the problem was and how to solve it. And over the summer, that is what I did. I managed to, but that sort of thing, although I was doing it like in person, troubleshooting, looking at a problem, identifying what the real problem is and coming up with a solution is able to be put into many different industries. It's not like specific. So after I'd done engineering, I went and worked for British Telecom. I worked for them for just under 7 years in London, and I did new product development, market research, that sort of thing, and ended up working in business planning and strategy. So that was where my passion was. And again, those skills are something that I bring to the table now when I work with my clients, because an important part of what I do is looking at the strategy of the business, where it's heading, and really helping people work out what they need to do and how they need to do it. So,
And what was that experience like being in your 20s at that time and then going into that job? And then how did you build the relationship with that particular gentleman? Because obviously people are very fearful of it's my job and I'm going to hold on to it. And this person is an unknown entity. And all of a sudden they hear, why? What make you feel? And how did you manage to tackle that? What did you do to overcome that?
so like one of the things, obviously, like partly the issue was just being like a young graduate type thing. So you've got a little bit of education potentially. And then it also wasn't helped by the fact of being a female. But right through childhood, I've always got on really well with guys, talked about football. I grew up in Essex. The language is, I can match the language. I don't have that issue, if you know what I mean.
Because some people naturally shy away from that,
Yes.
because they see it as, sometimes when men have banter, women can look at it and go, "Oh, you're being mean," and it's quite the opposite. Sometimes I'm meaner to my best friends than anybody,
Yeah.
and we love each other to bits.
Yeah.
And it can be difficult, I should imagine, but because of
Yeah. I say, yeah, it's really like talking to the person and being open about what I was trying to achieve. And actually, I was trying to help him. And, I say, it was a really important production line. It was, like there was no, they weren't going to get rid of, they were never going to get rid of him. It was just about like how we could make it better, and somebody external looking in, because sometimes just a different perspective can make a difference. So, but the other thing is that it was really important, his opinion counted. And that's something that potentially people don't always see that. Like, they don't want to speak to the manager and say what an issue is because they think that's going to cause problems for them. Whereas if they can like speak through someone else, then it makes it easier. So it was about really making them understand that all I wanted to do was make their job better.
Yeah, oh, that's fantastic. And when I've been looking at the virtual business manager role that you are doing, you specialize in services that help businesses and entrepreneurs with a high turnover. So what unique challenges do these particular clients face that you think that they don't often is not often faced by other businesses?
So the sorts of clients that I'm looking to work with are there's two sort of two like different client bases. So one is going to be the business owner that is working and working and working. They're gradually working more, they've gone up to 70 hours a week. They work is their life. And for some people, they're quite happy working 70 hours a week, but they've got to the point where they can't grow their business any further because they can't do any more than 70 hours. So they're quite happy doing 70, but they want their business to expand and they haven't got any more hours to give. And so in that case, I can take away some of the work to give them back time so then they can grow their business further. The second type of person, again, is working the 70 hours, let's say, but they've got a slightly different relationship with their business. And actually, when they set up their business, they only wanted to be working a 40-hour week. That was one of the reasons that they'd got out of maybe a corporate life. They wanted more control. And so whilst they're happy with their turnover and where their business is, they're doing too many hours. So again, I take the hours off them, I give them their time back. But in the second scenario, it gives them back potentially time for hobbies, time for family, time to just do something else, maybe time to travel. So in both situations, I give people the time back, but what they choose to do with it depends on what their perspective on their work life is.
Yeah, that's really important because some businesses they want to grow
Yeah.
and they are the limiting factor because, like you said, they are working 70 hours, which
Yeah.
they're happy with, but then they can't give any more capacity
Yeah.
to do any more. And then the flip side is that there are people that just want to spend more time with their families and they don't want to grow. They're happy with the annual income and everything, and that they just need that time back. So how would you, for these type of businesses, how do you help streamline the operations then so that they can undertake that? I get it's probably different for different businesses.
Yeah. I mean, generally what's happened is over the time as they've grown to the point that they've got to, they have potentially added things little by little. In my head, I sort of see a Mr. Messy, like it's all tangled up. It's it's a bit of a mess because it's just evolved over time to meet their needs, and just things have been bolted on as and when. So I come in as an outside perspective and can look at it overall and then redesign that inside to make it more efficient. Maybe they've got 3 or 4 different systems that, yeah, they've got them all talking together, but it might not be the most efficient way. They may have processes in place that have evolved over the years, but it might not be the most efficient way to do something, but they're too involved and they need to just keep going, so they don't have time to sit back and look. So it's just an extra, it's a breathing space almost. I can look in and I have the time to really reflect and see what needs to happen. And so it enables them to focus still on doing what they are doing, but knowing that it's actually like I'm putting the jigsaw together, I'm working it out. I'm like, maybe it's Tetris and I'm putting the three or four blocks together and they suddenly disappear. I'm working out in the background what needs to happen to continue to support them as they need to service their clients, but in a much more efficient and streamlined way through, like I say, things like processes and systems. The other thing, obviously, is they've been doing everything. One of the things that I do is identify who the right person is to do each element. So, for example, maybe the business owner has been doing their social media. Now, there's lots of people out there who specialize in social media. They are experts in social media. My client may be a business coach, may be a photographer. Their expertise is in that, not in social media. So I've got a group of contractors in my network that I would reach out to and find somebody who has the skill to do a specific job. And then I would manage that person. So it's taking everything off the plate of the owner. I want the clients that I partner with to be able to enjoy their business and do what brings them joy, why they set the business up in the first place. That is what's important. They need to be working with their existing customers and also talking to potential customers.
And that all comes into the work-life balance, or you're helping your clients streamline their own work-life balance. And given that you're doing that, how do you manage your own time between serving the clients and then managing your own personal time? Because it's on the flip side as well. You've got to do it for
Yes.
yourself. So how do you?
Yeah. So one of the reasons that I do what I do, one of the reasons that I work for myself and one of the reasons that I do this is because my work-life balance is really important to me. Even when I was working part-time in an employed basis in 2010, 2011, I was really conscious that I wasn't wanting to ever work full time again. I'd worked full time up until having my son, but after having my son, I realized that I didn't want to ever work full time. And so, what I now do is I will only ever work with 2 or 3 clients at any one time. So I keep the number of clients low so that I can give people the time and energy. I think it's important that it's not just time, it's the energy. And sometimes it's the space that they hold in my head, because I can be, I can't stop myself thinking about things. So it's really important that I only ever work, and I do only ever work with 2 or 3 people at any one time. And I only would ever bring a new client in every possibly month, 2 months. So I want to make sure that I have really got to grips with one client before bringing another client on. And obviously, like I say, because I only work with a few and I tend to work with people long term, that's relatively easy to manage. So I'd never really be looking for 2 new clients at the same time. I'd be managing that. But as well as saying I'm only working with a couple of clients, I only look to commit to half of a full-time working week on paid work with my clients. So I look at 20 hours a week across however many clients that I've got. So that gives me flexibility. So, for instance, when I get a new client, if I do need to put some extra hours in, I've got time within, because I've only committed to 20 hours. So I've still got a lot of flexibility. It's also important to me to be able to do work on my own business. Whether that's promoting, whether that's doing things like this, whether it's networking, all of that is important, but it also, for me, needs to be in that time that I've allowed for my work. The other thing is, because I do travel, by keeping the time that I commit to clients lower, it's easier for me to shift things slightly forward in a week or slightly back in a week, to enable when I do need a day for travel, then I've got that flexibility. So work-life balance is really, really important for me. And if it's important for my clients, because they say, it's more important for some than others, I will do everything I can to help them achieve the work-life balance that they want.
Fantastic. And it's one of those things where, especially in today's day and age now, people are striving for the work-life balance. Like it's a unicorn that can't be achieved, but it is some semblance of, you don't have to work as hard as you think you do, because people have, well, I certainly have the problem of letting go of control, because I've built the business, so I want to do everything. And then there's that fine work balance, and I want
Yes.
more work balance to spend time with my kids. And it's that having that person to go, it's okay to let go of control of this so you can do this.
Yes. I think part of it is actually realizing that whilst you're doing everything and you want control of everything, to an extent, you've still got the control because you're giving the direction. You're still like, I don't change the direction of someone's business without their permission, but you're not having to worry about the minuscule detail. So you're not losing complete control, because you possibly, with me assisting you, are sorting out that direction. You're still saying, right, that's where we're trying to go, but you're not actually having to do all the things that you're not very good at doing or you don't want to do. And I think a lot of the time, like with some of my clients, it's been, I had a client that was a business coach. The business, like doing the business coaching and training people, gave them joy. That was what they loved doing. They wanted to work less hours and only wanted to do the business coaching and training. And so by me taking everything, supporting all the admin, everything in the background away, they could enjoy their business more. But they weren't giving up the complete control, because I'm still taking their business in the direction that they want and that we've agreed. It's just that. And you can, like, they can have like weekly updates. If they, like initially they could even have daily if it was that sort of in-depth project that they needed daily. Weekly, it's all about showing that I'm doing what they want, and then gradually over time the need for so much reassurance diminishes.
Because one of the things that I attribute it to is that because I like to be in control of almost everything that I'm doing in my business, but I'm also very conscious by doing that I'm also a watered down version of myself, because I can only give so much to each individual component. And the things that I might not like doing, I'm still trying to give 100% on something that I don't like doing. And then I could be focusing my efforts elsewhere. So for businesses that are on the flip side of it, they don't want perhaps the work-life balance, but they are looking to increase the business, increase perhaps the customer capacity, or whatever the goal may be. With your experiences that you've had in the past of doing different roles and everything, how does how have your skill set helped to help grow those businesses in that sense? I think I got that right. I'm trying to work.
Yeah. So like one, obviously, like I say, I've done some I've worked in strategy and business planning, and things like brainstorming, like we all know, if we're like, business owners working on our own, how lonely it can be. And potentially, even when we do networking, it can be great, but people don't necessarily know our business in that same depth. Whereas if you've got a trusted partner that is working closely with you, then that idea, that brainstorming of potential ways to go and take your business is just like, it's another level. And if sometimes I can identify things. So I was working with a fitness instructor pre-COVID, and COVID hit, and obviously she had to pivot her business, and I was there to help her, and obviously, like, I actually had the experience of working remotely, and so I was able to help, to be a sounding board for ideas, but also input ideas, which then enabled her to maintain a business during COVID.
And the crucial thing with that is the period in which time you can pivot, because people can say, oh, I can do this on my own. But then the time scale of that actually happening is quite a long time, because you've got to learn a lot of stuff. You've got to
Yes.
learn where you need to pivot to, but having someone like yourself who has this information can make that time scale a lot less and a lot more concise,
Yes.
which is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, one of the things is, as well as all the experience that I've got, I also have the ability to tap into the experiences of other people that do similar roles to me. And so not only do I've got different networks. I've got networks of people that can provide like support services, but as well, they they all will know the cutting edge of their specialism. So we therefore are able to tap into so much. And potentially, I've got people in my network that may have worked with similar businesses, that may be able to pass on experiences which then shortcut the experiences. So there's so much that is like my experience, but then also the experience of all the people that I have in my various trusted networks. And that's what's really important. So, for example, the people that I trained when I did my first step into virtual working, they have a network of people that have been through that training, and so therefore that's a stamp of approval there, so you're getting a certain standard if I go and find someone from there. When I did my certification, that's another network of people, and I know they've got a certain standard because it's a hard qualification to get. And so people in that network, again, I know they're trusted because I know what they've been through to get where they are. And so I have a really good network that I can rely on if I need to.
That was actually one of the questions, was the impact of the certification, and you just nailed
Yes.
it.
So as well as, like, one of the things is, obviously, like I say, it's an inner circle of people. But one of the other reasons that I did it was to consolidate and update the experience that at that point I had a bit of a shock when I worked out the other day of like nearly 30 years. And so I'd done project management. I'd done Prince 2. I did that back in the late 2000s. And so like project management was an element of the certification, and it just like refreshes you, potentially gives you a different spin on what you've already learnt. I'd done like I did the ACCA certified diploma in accounting and finance in the late 90s. So I'd done like, that's finance for non-financial managers. So again, it's like just bringing things up to date, potentially different ways of thinking about things, like like electronic things that may have like moved on. So I've used project management software in the past, and it's looking at what sort of thing, how people tend to do it now. And so it's things like that. It's just making sure that you're at the cutting edge, and the international association like keep you up to date with continuing professional development as well. So there's like monthly calls. You again, like I say, you've got that tap in of all the people that are doing things in the wider business, that then you can, that everyone's experiencing, and you learn from everybody's experiences all the time.
And to pick up on one of the things that you mentioned earlier is about the network of people, and it just something that, not so much a selling point, but it's like when you when a customer is coming to you, they're not just getting you.
No.
And that's the thing that they don't see, is that, okay, this is Sian and you are a virtual business manager and you are going to, this is what you're going to be doing for me. But then what they don't see is the level of expertise of the people and the network that encompass you as well.
Yes. Yes.
Which is something that you don't often think about. I think that I'm like, with people come to me, they just get in myself. But with you, there's a whole host of people that are able to facilitate the work that they need.
Yes.
With the right expertise. And they're not just someone, oh, this is a friend of mine. They are people of high caliber, which is, for a business owner, I should imagine, that's a level of insurance that.
Yes. That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, when I identify the need for someone to come in and do a specific role in someone's business, it's always someone within my trusted network. So it may be somebody that I've used before. If it's not somebody that I've used before, it's going to be somebody I know has used before. And so it's really important, and I will screen them. I put one of my contacts in contact with another of my contacts to do a role, nothing to do with my business, but putting two people together. But before doing that, I'd had a conversation with the one person and identified that there was a need, and realized that I had someone in my network that could do that. Before putting them in contact, I screened that other person to see if they actually had the time, whether they actually were interested in doing it. And so when I actually put the two people together, I'd already done all the legwork.
and getting clients, not so much clients, but when you're hiring staff, people don't realize the inordinate amount of work that goes into it, trying to hire the right people, trying to make sure that they're the right fit with, because that's an unknown fear of getting someone in, but then you
Yes.
realize afterwards they're not that passionate. They didn't really want the job, but they just wanted the security of a job, and
Yeah.
then you're stuck with someone. So that's fantastic. Are you okay to do that role play that we said?
Yeah, go for it. Go on.
So what I wanted to do is, because on the other flip side, we said about looking at customers who want the lifestyle,
Yeah.
they want their time back, and then there's obviously the other side then who wants to grow their business. So like with my business, I know that I got a threshold that once I get to 4 or 5 customers a month, I'm at a capacity where there's only so much I can do, and I want to grow the business beyond that. So what would if I came to you and said, Sean, right, this is where I'm at. I've got 5 customers that I'm supporting. Everything is hunky-dory, but I'm at max capacity. But I want to grow the business. I want to double this number perhaps over the next year to 2 years. What would be the first things that you would ask me?
So one of the things that I do is a business audit. So I have a series of questions that I ask. But one like so in the scenario, what I'd be looking at is actually like how you spend your time. So what we would want you doing is all the stuff that requires your expertise. So, for example, doing this now, you need to do this, unless you want to have an associate that does some of the interviewing or, but this would be what I would see you would want to do this. You would want to do the post processing, probably anything, potentially in the future if you got so busy you may not want to do that. But then there's an awful lot of other stuff that you're doing. You may be you may be spending some of your time on social media. Now, yes, it has to have your voice, it has to, it has to encompass your values, but a good social media person is going to be able to do that. Well, they're going to be able to do your voice correctly, which is important because it's got to sound like it's you. But yes, they're gonna have ideas about when is best to post it. They're gonna be paying attention to that. They might try posting at different times and seeing what makes sense, whereas you won't have done that. You'll just be posting when you get a chance. It might be haphazard. And so not only could I take that away from you, but somebody else will, they will do it better because it's their skill set. So if you were spending or you'd allocated 5 hours a week to social media, straight away I can give you that back.
And that would be fantastic, because one of the things that I'm not, as much as I'm in the different position where I'm not precious about whether it's me that does the editing, whether it's me that does the shooting. I want to get the business to a point where there's enough clients and it's growing nicely, but I'm not precious about doing individual jobs. So like you just said, now with the social media, I'd have no issue
Yeah.
with that, because I do find that a time, because I create social media for my customers, but then on top of that I got to create my own, and sometimes I'm burnt out.
Yes.
And it doesn't always help, and then there are times then where I could be up till 12 o'clock at night because I've done the work for my customers. I've had like 1 or 2 hours break, and then I go, right, okay, I've got that. And it's not so much that I don't need to. You got to get the visibility out there. Yes. Because I'm very aware that whilst I have 5 customers, that doesn't mean that 1 or 2 of those customers might go, actually, we found a better offer and that suits us better, and I could lose 2 customers. I don't want to be in the position then when I'm like,
yes,
having to chase, so things like that. And so if I was, for instance, looking for an editor, because like editing,
yeah,
would that be something that you would then, if I said to you, Sean, look, I am spending 20 hours or 30 hours doing editing, it's a massive backlog for the business.
Yeah, we'd look at what you were we'd look at what you needed. So we'd like do like almost like a job spec. We'd get an idea of what you were looking for, what sort of skills, if there was like particular software that they needed, you know, so that we could actually make sure that we were finding the right sort of person for you. So, you know, it's it is, you know, and then like potentially it would, you know, I would speak to people. We would get like samples of what they'd done, so because, you know, it's that, you know, with something like that, it's that, you know, it's that sort of thing. It's almost a portfolio, isn't it? You'd need to see their work to really see. And then also it's how they, you know, like it's a bit of a fit thing as well. It's personality. You know, we all, you know, like we, you know, people buy from people, but we also, we want to work with people that we get on with.
Yeah, and
And
I want to
so,
provide an environment where people actually want to come and work, because there's nothing worse working for someone and you think, Jesus Christ, I got to do this again with him today.
yeah,
I don't want that for anybody that wants to work with me, not for me, because I don't believe in that. Not so much that relationship, but I want to work with people who want to work with me because they go, I believe in this
yes,
and I'm passionate about it. Not, it's a job and I
yes,
just
and
have to
that's, yeah.
please
So
you.
it is. It's about like people being able to feel that they can come to you with ideas,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So it's, yeah, it's trying to get away from just being like very, very task driven and very one-sided, bringing it down, that you like your team would be like a very, like if you like a very flat structure, in that like you're open. It's not my way or the highway.
I'm very pragmatic when it
Yeah,
comes to that, because at the end of the day, I'm a lazy boy. And if something makes my life easier, you crack on.
yeah,
I'm really, really not precious. The only thing that I'm precious about is manners and the way that people talk to the customers, that we're making sure that we're providing value, that the customer feels supported, and that there's no questions. If I get a person that can provide that, then that's just the personality. It's got nothing to do with their capability.
yeah,
And sometimes people's skills and capability are two separate things. You might be very capable,
yeah,
but you might not be very personable when it comes to working with the client or serving the client. And that's the only thing that, for me, I mean, if they came in, the editor, and gone, Byron, I'm not being funny, you've done that wrong. Have I?
yeah,
Bloody hell, sort it out, mate.
yeah,
Teach me. I want
yeah,
people here that are better than me,
yeah,
if that makes sense, because all I want to do is elevate the work for my client. So it's nice to know that basically you'll be able to come in, and regardless of what the requirement is that there's a discussion, you understand the brief that I've got,
yes,
and you
yeah,
facilitate it without me having to go, crap,
yes,
I've got to think about this
yeah.
now.
And the thing is that as your virtual team grows, if if you were doing it all on your own, you'd be still spending time managing your team. Whereas one of the other benefits is that I would be able to manage your team. So it really does enable you to do what you want to do, what you find enjoyable. And if you have a team, that you're not having to chase them, because I'm there to make sure everyone's doing what they need to at the right time, so that it all comes through to you to go to the client. So there's that, like I say, it's like it is like for me it is a partnership, and it's just taking the bits away from you that you don't want to do. So great, you'll have a team, but you don't want to be having to talk to six people every day, and not in a bad way, but
Don't want to micromanage.
no. And so that's the thing, and it's just making sure that the work's going out and the work's coming back in, but it just frees you having to worry. You don't have to think, right, tomorrow I've got to chase this person, because you know that's already someone else's job to do that. That if it hasn't come in, hopefully it's come in without being chased. But if it needs chasing, you know somebody else is going to chase it for you. You haven't got to worry. You know that it's going to turn up.
And I'm very pragmatic with the sense of that when it comes to the business, and me wanting to control every aspect because it's my baby, I've built it, and no one else knows how to do this more than me. And it's really strange. It's like when you go to, say for instance, a hotel or a shop, when you walk in as a customer, you expect there to be more than one person. You expect there to be more than one person doing another job, and you expect a service. But then when you become a business manager, nobody else can do it better than yourself, and you don't like to let go of control.
Yeah.
So for those people who are in that position where they're like, I know that I need help, but I'm not ready to relinquish control, how do you manage that communicatively, how to put them at ease for the benefit for them?
Yeah, so I think so like obviously when I work with someone, I become so integral with someone's business. I care about the business as much as my clients. That's like we talked earlier, that I only work with like 2 or 3 people at any one time, and the time, like, and that's partly time, but that's also energy. I become really invested in my client's business. I'm only ever going to be successful if my clients are successful. And you know I've had my own businesses. I've been a personal trainer. I've had a one-to-one adult swimming lesson business. I've had a yoga and Pilates studio. I've run businesses, and now like my business is really supporting another business. None of us can exist without clients, but there's really nothing I can do without a client.
Yeah.
Like you could create videos. Maybe it would be like like wildlife, it could be or street scenes, or but you could create videos even if you didn't have a client. But I can't manage a business if there isn't a business to manage.
Yeah, it's chicken in the egg.
Yeah. There's no. So I'm only successful if my client is successful, and so. But it's a business is a baby. I had a baby. I had to find a nursery for them, and like maybe like going to school, it was probably it's harder for the parent than the child when your child goes to school for the first day. They don't even look behind, do they?
And you feel that bit in your heart, and you just like look back. You look back, you jerk. It's about me. It's not about you. This moment's for me.
And so it is. I do understand how important the business is to my client. To be honest, if the business wasn't important to my client, then they're not a client for me, because I actually want I want my clients to care about their business. If they didn't care about their business, then I don't want to work with them. So I do, I really do understand that. If they haven't outsourced anything before, then one of the ways, if they really are like not wanting to, is to take an element and outsource it. So we'd like one example would be social media. Another example may be like managing their inbox for them. It could be following up leads. There's yes, it's showing that somebody else can help them, and the benefit of that.
And it's that whole thing, and they say a lot with it within film as well. When you're watching a film, is the show don't tell, and
Yes.
until you're there with the customer and you're showing them, and they go, actually, this is nice.
Yes. Yeah. When you realize, I think that's like you say, when you realize, like, oh wow, like my social media is doing really well. Yeah, I'm doing the occasional post myself, but I've got it, like I'm getting all these amazing graphics. The content looks really good. It's being posted out regularly. I don't have to think about it. And then you suddenly realize that you're not staying up to midnight having to do it. And so you've got time back. Or, like I say, you may be up to midnight, but you're doing something else. You're growing your business, And so, yeah, it's actually seeing the benefit of outsourcing something.
And it's that adage of working on the business or working in the business,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you allow
Yes.
the alternative is for you to you'll actually be able to work on the business rather than being the person that's in the business,
Yeah.
trying to manage. Like I said earlier, you end up becoming a watered down version
Yes.
of yourself, and that's
Yes.
fundamentally not gonna grow anything. And I've seen that a lot of your LinkedIn posts, they talk about the growth and the mindset for like business expansion. And you've already alluded to how you do this and how you cultivate that, but do you do a lot of these LinkedIn posts talking about that and the importance of growth and the cultivation of the mindset for businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, obviously, yeah. I mean, hopefully, my LinkedIn has improved this year. That's one of my things that I've been working on with somebody that I'm working with. So I'm not doing it all myself. Um, you know, it's yeah. What's really important is getting people to have the right mindset and to realize, sometimes just to realize, like, what what is possible.
And I think it's one of those things like Dan, our friend, he's mentioned a few times that if people aren't willing to accept change, that change won't happen. So it's like, how do businesses get to a point where I know I need to accept change?
Yeah.
And that's one a few of the things that I've seen with your LinkedIn posts is that they are talking about growth, which is that talk about accepting change. And then it gets the ball rolling then, well, okay, once I've done this and I've got that mindset of, okay, I need help, it's then becoming visible.
Yeah, I think the thing, I think we all initially want to think that we know best in our business and that we know about every part of our business better than anyone else. But what, the reality is that, like, lots of elements of a business are independent of what that business is. Like, so
Could a lot of them be
I
like automated?
yes, so there's a, like, obviously, there's a lot that can be automated now with systems and processes. But whereas like, initially people think, right, I'm in video, so the only people can help me are people that are experts in video. The reality is, it doesn't, I don't need to know about video. I can still help you because I know how to run the back end of a business. What your skill is the video, talking to your clients and talking to your potential clients, because the best person to speak about what you do is yourself. So you need time to do that, time to network and talk about what you do. But actually running the back end of the business, I don't need to know really the nitty gritty of how you do a video. And that's the thing. And that, so the skill that I've built up is independent of what my client really does.
And that's key, because one of the things that you often hear people do and say is that, well, I do this, and because you don't do that, surely you wouldn't know. But fundamentally, and it's the same with video, and what I find with a lot of the clients is that a lot of the problems that clients are having are fundamentally the same when it comes to their work, or this, they might have training with staff issue or anything like that. So those problems from business to business don't change, and the niche is just the front end. It's
Yeah.
just your profession. So like mine is videography, you've got photographers, you've got people who do like welding and stuff like that, but that is just their tool skill set.
Yeah.
Running a business after that, you still got the cake, and that's just the frosting, the layering, or the icing on top. And I think that fundamentally people would go, well, Sian doesn't know anything about video, so why would I?
Yeah.
But you don't need to.
No.
And sometimes that provides clarity, because you're
Yes.
removed from the fact of.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes it is that I can bring in a different perspective, an experience from a different industry may actually help. But as you say, really, like, we all have clients that we need to onboard, so there's always going to be an element of that, whether it's a lot of clients that you do a one-off thing for, or whether you have long-term relationships with clients. Again, you can look at different things. So like in the fitness industry, people want long-term, ideally in a photography, in like photography, like commercial photography, you're looking for long term, but you may start off with one-off jobs. So the way that you've got, like, there's differences and there's similarities. How you deal with someone that, like, if you were a wedding photographer, you probably only, yes, you might then try and upsell them, like family portraits or, pregnancy or things like that. So you look at how you can keep a client, but it's, it's, you can come up with similar ideas in different industries.
And that's one of the things that I really like with the networking, that with the Zocket, is that one of the things that, one, it was great because it allowed me to see different perspectives and different ideas from people within different industries, but it's also really unified the fact of that everybody's having the same issues.
Yeah. Whatever we are doing, we're all facing the same things, because at the end, like, the back end of the business is very similar. Time is the bit, so it is, it's time, it's what processes we have, do we have an email list, how are we collecting people's emails, all of those, there's, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you need to be getting the emails, you need to be doing something with them once you've got them. There's no point in just collecting them and doing nothing with them.
It's mentally taxing.
Yes.
That's what I think. That's one of the things that I didn't realize when I started the business. I've always worked in a 9 to 5 job, so I've always had the security. I only had one thing to do, and then I'm doing this, and the context switching, because everything within the business has a niche. How you email customers, there's a right way to do it. The onboarding, the website.
Yeah.
There is so much, and the marketing. And they're all skill sets that I have videography, that is why I'm doing it. And I want to build a relationship with the customers. But that was just like they said, the icing. I'm now having to learn the cake
Yeah.
and the layers in the cake and the context switching, and it could be draining.
Yeah.
And you do not so much, you do make mistakes, and it's 90% of the time the client doesn't see it.
Yeah.
Because they're internally. And that's where you.
Yeah. I think obviously, like, most people when they start out, we, all have to do everything for financial reasons, and, so you get a little bit of an understanding, and that, that can, but you don't necessarily have the latest thinking. You may have picked up tips through talking to someone in a networking event, but they may not be the expert in that either. You might be talking to, I don't know, you might be talking to a marketing person, and they give you accounting advice. We all try, we're all muddling along, we're all trying to help each other, and so we do try and help, but we do get to the point where we need to stop muddling along, and to really take our business to the next stage, we need to start putting like the proper foundations in, because that's what's going to take us to the next stage. We've managed, we've muddled along. Like I say, I sometimes see a Mr. Messy. We've, I don't know what that says about me. The fact I'm going to say it's because we've been sorting out my mum's house, and we came across some of the stuff from childhood, and I obviously went through a phase of drawing the Mr. Men, and so that's going to be my excuse of why I see Mr. Messy. But yeah, we do what we have to do to get us to a certain point, but then to get further, we have to do something different, and we have to get someone to help us, depending where we are. Maybe we talk to someone, but we then still have to implement it ourselves because we still aren't at that position. But there gets a point where we can afford to start paying people to do the parts of the business that we don't want to do.
And I think that is it like a monetary value, is that we assume that just because we're not paying for someone or we're doing this ourselves, in our minds we're like, well, that's free, I'm not spending anything.
Yeah,
but that's not true.
No, you see, the thing is, when you so I don't know, say your charge is £100 an hour. So when you are working with a client, you're getting £100 an hour. Every hour that's in your working day that you're doing, say you're doing admin, you could be getting paid £100 an hour, yet you are doing admin. Now, potentially, a virtual assistant, as an example, could be doing that admin. They may be charging you £25, £30, £35 an hour. Now, the other thing is, not only is it cheaper than what you could earn in the hour, more than likely they're going to be doing it quicker, more efficiently. So your hour might only be 30 minutes. So all of a sudden, for like what you are taking 2 hours, which would be equivalent to, say, earning £200 if you were doing client facing, you might be paying someone £35, £40 before. It's a big difference.
And it's one of those things, because I remember doing jobs in the past, and we always used to have like, I was like the junior tester or someone. And then we would be working with the lead engineers or the lead testers. And something that would take them 10 to 15 minutes might take me 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
And we don't equate that to a value.
No. I
So do you think that'd
yeah.
be a starting point for people to do, to actually
Yeah,
think
no,
about?
a business coach that I worked with used to talk about invoice value. And, whenever, like, obviously time is money. We hear that all the time. But the reality is that we make the money when we're doing stuff for our clients. So anything that stops us doing that, we need to see whether it's beneficial for us to do. Now, obviously, I don't know, like if it was going to cost you £1,000 to outsource something for an hour, I don't know what you'd be doing. You'd be getting, I don't know, you're getting a
Well,
famous person to come in and do an interview, and you have to pay them £1,000 for the hour instead of you doing it for, say like that. So then the only benefit would be if all of a sudden, like, that was a marketing opportunity, and whilst it was costing you a lot more than you doing it, the visibility and everything that came afterwards was actually meant that it was an investment and it was worth doing. But generally we look at, like, giving it to people that it's going to cost less than what we can earn in that hour. Now, yes, when I was a fitness instructor, we might only get paid 20 or £25 an hour, and actually we'd be paid for doing 1 hour, but the travel time to get there, to turn up before the class, travel time back, we might be out of the house for 2 hours, and then we also had to prepare for the class. That could be another hour. We would actually end up being paid for 1 hour and doing 3 hours work.
it's the same with this business.
Yeah.
It's like anytime I'm doing work for a client, even if I say it's just a half-day shoot, it's going to take me a half a day prep, making sure that the equipment's okay. It then takes another day or two planning, making sure the script is okay, making sure that all the shots that we need to cover, the brief and everything. And it's surprising where the unseen time goes.
Yeah.
But we don't calculate it because we're like, oh, well, the customer's paid and this is what I'm doing and this is part of the service.
Yeah.
And we don't really think about it. Right, I'm not getting paid for this time and I should be.
Yeah. So then, that is a slightly different discussion, because it's then looking at how you price things, because it isn't just about the client facing time in, like in a role like you say, you've just described everything that you do, and like I say, it's the same in a lot of industries. Like I said, like, the actually they think they're paying for 2 hours, but they're not. They're paying for 8. So it's more about the value rather than the time as well. So, sometimes I might be having that discussion with a client about how they price. It could be, like, that could be something that, yeah, because it is actually going, right, okay, you've just, you've spent 8 hours and you're actually in charge, you've told me that your rate is, X, and actually you're only charging them for 2, but you've done 8 hours. So, yeah.
So that's another part of the business that people perhaps don't realize that you are going to help with, is the fact that you're fundamentally going to be fetching other people in.
Yeah.
But you could go, hang on,
Yeah.
you're seriously undercharging here, and given that the market that you're in, you can be charging a lot more for what you're doing because you're actually not charging enough.
Yeah. Yeah. You think you're charging X, but actually you're charging Y, and we don't always realize that we're doing that, but we also, partly, we need to educate our clients. Partly it is, well, like, when you speak to a potential client, it's like, yes, they don't need to know the nitty gritty, but they do need to understand that they're not actually just paying you for the 2 hours that you're there.
And it's okay to be more expensive.
Yes.
Because I can't remember where I heard it from, but someone said, you're either going to be too expensive for some, you're either going to be too cheap for others.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you think you're pricing at, that's always going to be the same. As, like, I know that there are certain companies that would never employ me because my rate is too cheap for
Yeah.
what, and they would be like, well, no, we can't take you seriously because you're
Yes.
only charging X.
Yeah. And I think that's, that's, like a slightly, it's a slightly different thing, but it's still something that I can have conversations with, like I could look at
I gotta
a
stop throwing
client.
problems at it.
Yeah. But no, but I've got, I could go, right, okay, you're my new client. Actually, what I'm going to do is go and look at what other people charge for similar stuff. And then I'll go, hang on a minute, you're only charging 200 quid. This guy down the road is charging 1,000.
And they're nowhere near as good as you.
And actually, yeah, when I've looked at what they're doing, yeah, it's perception, and so we don't necessarily do ourselves any favors, because people, have a tendency to equate a cost with a quality, and that isn't necessarily, it's really important when like if somebody's looking to do business with you, it's really important for them to actually look at the output, what you've done for other people, to see whether you are, like whether you're the right person. It's like, yes, it's slightly, with me, it's like, it is slightly harder because I'm hidden, like we mentioned Zocket earlier, and I was the duty manager on the day for the Zocket Expo last October. Now, my whole aim was really to be almost invisible that day. If you saw me, you would have seen me running around like a mad thing, because I was making sure that everything was running properly. But I am in the background so that my client is there in the front. My client was able to be out on the expo floor, talking to visitors, talking to exhibitors, doing the networking. Whereas if I hadn't been there, they would have had to have been doing what I was doing, making sure that the talks were starting on time, finishing on time, that people, like somebody needed a gluten-free lunch. I needed to make sure that they got their gluten-free lunch, like silly little things, but it takes up time. And my client didn't have to worry about anything apart from customer facing, because everything was being done.
Which is where they want to be in the business, and it's the same place where I want to be. I want to be customer facing. I want to build that relationship and instill that confidence, and know that the system underneath me represents that.
Yes.
Fantastic. So how can, if people are really interested in your services and everything like that, what you do, and what's the best way to get in contact with you, or how can they find out more about yourself and get in contact? Is it the website, or?
LinkedIn's a pretty good place, because obviously I do post quite regularly, and so that's I would say that's the number one place. But then there's a link from LinkedIn to my website, and so yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on tonight. It's been lovely talking to you. Hope this was beneficial and you've enjoyed.
Yeah, no, brilliant. It's been absolutely fantastic. So thank you. Thank you for letting me come over.
No, you are more than welcome. I'm just really pleased that the dogs take on.
Yeah.
I heard the cat. I was just like, that cat's going to ruin everything. I could hear it upstairs, and I was just like, go on, you keep meowing. No, but thank you very, very much for, taking the time to come on and everything. It was lovely.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Brilliant. You are.